Welcome back for another tutorial. In this lesson, we're going to be going through Chapter 14 tutorial, which is, I guess it's kind of like a bearing block, or like basically what we're doing is we're putting an assembly together. Let me see what they call it here. So, assembly modeling, it's called putting it all together. So this is just some kind of random assembly that they've given us here, shaft support assembly. So that's what we're going to be assembling here. Now I've created all of the parts already. So since we're the 14th tutorial, everybody should know how to make the parts by now. So if you don't, you might want to go back, look at some of the other tutorial videos, and just kind of get the hang, get a knack for making the parts. But the parts are already created. What we're going to work on today is we're going to work on putting them in an assembly, mating them, and then we're going to create an assembly drawing with them. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start, well, first off, I've opened an assembly drawing, a blank one, and I'm going to check the place button. And you can see here I have all my parts in here. So I'm going to first bring in my base plate. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to make this a grounded part to origin. And basically all that does is it takes away all the freedom, the axes of movement. So you have no freedom in any axis. And I can confirm that if I go to my, I believe it's under, I think it's under, it's under view maybe? Yeah, there it is. Degrees of freedom. So if I turn that on, you can see I don't have any degrees of freedom here. So let's go ahead and bring in our other parts a while. So what I like to do is I like to bring in all my parts first. So I'll bring in the bearing, click that, set it over here, place, cap screw, we need 2 of those, and my collar. So place all of those. Alright. Now, if I go and click that view and look at my degrees of freedom, you can see here I have 6 degrees of freedom. It's showing me the arrows, meaning it can move in those directions, and then it also has rotational arrows, meaning it can rotate around those axes as well. So you have 6 degrees of freedom on any given part. Of course, this one has none because we've grounded it. So I'm going to click those off. We're going to work through this. Now we're going to turn it back on, and we're going to see. We should only have one axis or 1 degree of freedom on one part when we're finished here. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to take this bearing and I'm going to mount that to this base plate. So I'm going to go into assemble, I'm going to go to constraint, and I'm going to use my mate command, and I'm just going to mate this surface to this surface. And you can see there it mates it up perfectly. Now if I wanted to, if it wasn't right, if it was on the underside, I would click this button and change the solution. So you can see there the solution now still mated to that surface, but it's on the other side of that surface. But I don't want that. I want the original. So I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to hit apply. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align this cylinder with this hole here, or this bore with this bore. So I'm going to go ahead and select the inside there, and select the inside of there, and it will line those up, and I'll hit apply. Now when I look at this, you can see I only have 1 degree of freedom. It's actually there's a circular arrow there showing that I can rotate this thing around. You can see here I can move it that direction, but it's constrained in all axes of movement. It can't move because it's kept on that bore. The surfaces are mated, so it can't move in any direction. It can only rotate around that y-axis. See, here's the y. So it can only rotate around there. We're going to actually constrain that as well, and there's a couple ways we can do this. One of the ways that you can do it is you can just mate those, and now it's constrained. It can't go anywhere. So you can do that, but sometimes that'll give you a problem. And the reason that can give you a problem, if these holes are off location by even 1/10, if you accidentally type in maybe this hole is 1/10 over, they won't line up and it will not allow you to mate them. So sometimes a better way of doing this, and I had escape so it didn't apply that, a better way of doing this is to go into your part, and I'm going to pick my base plate, open it, and my bearing and open it. And I'm going to go into my origin for both. And I'm going to find a... Here we go. I'm going to find the plane. And of course, I did a mid-plane extrude or a symmetric extrude. So what happened there is basically I have a plane running down the middle of my part. And this is very, very, very helpful when you're creating assembly. So that's why I always, anytime I have a symmetric part, I always like to mid-plane extrude it. Or symmetrically extrude it. So I'm going to click that one, and I'm going to find the same plane that's running down the middle here for that part. And you can see right there it is. It's my YZ plane. So I'm going to click that one and hit apply, and it's going to align those. So now you can see there's no degrees of freedom there. And if I select and try and pull this thing, I can't move it at all. It doesn't go anywhere. So it's completely constrained. Okay, so next I am going to grab this part, and we are going to insert this in to the top. So we're going to use the insert command, and I'm going to select this part right here. And you have to have two edges that are going to line up with each other. So if I were to select maybe like this edge and this edge, well, it wouldn't fully go in there, and I can actually demonstrate that. So if I select this edge and this edge, you can see there it doesn't really know what I want to do there. So we're going to come back, and we're going to select this edge, and we're going to select this edge. Now, the other thing I need to do is I need to mate these surfaces. So I'm going to hit, oops. Let me go back and do that again. I accidentally clicked something I didn't want to click. So click there, apply, and darn it, I forgot to do it again. All right, constrain, insert, there we go. Click here. Let me demo this again here. Keep clicking the wrong thing. Alright, there we go. So I'm on the insert. I've clicked the outside of that, and I'm going to click here. And you can see there I have overlap. Darn it. I hit escape again. Do this again. There. So I'm going to hit apply, and I'll undo that then. So you can see there I have overlapping surfaces. So it actually brought it in too far because that it's lining that chamfer up with the other edge. So that's not going to work for us. We need to undo that. Hit constrain. So what I could do is I could pick this that edge and this edge. Well, that might work for me, but I know this edge. Forgot to hit insert again. Insert. And this edge, I know that they are mated correctly. But you can see there, I picked the wrong edge again, so I'm going to reselect that edge. No. So if you want to reselect the edge, what you can do is re-click these, move this out of the way, and now I can select the right edge. There we go. Really struggling with that. So you can see how it can be difficult sometimes if you accidentally pick the wrong edge. You can have a problem there. But now we've got that edge the way we want it. And I'm going to turn my view off. I want my degrees of freedom off. Okay, so last we need to put these screws in here. So I'm just going to use the same thing. I'm going to use insert again, if I can remember to click it. I'm going to pick this edge and this edge. Apply. Again, I'm going to pick that edge and that edge. Hit apply. Okay, so they are locked in all their axes, but I can still rotate these. And I'm actually going to constrain these to a certain direction. Again, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use the planes. So I'm going to open up both cap screws and their origins. And I'm gonna make them constrained to the bearing. So we're gonna go into this bearing and find. Okay, that's not the right plane. That's not the right plane. Okay, there's my plane. All right, so I'm gonna make them align to my YZ plane. So we're gonna hit constrain, and we're gonna pick this plane. Apply, YZ, and there we go. Apply. All right, so now those can't rotate. They're tight, and they're not going to move. All right, so we have that constrained. Now let's just look at something here. So if I look at my book, I can see now that my hole is on the wrong side, right? So that's a problem. So how do I fix that? Well, I can undo a bunch of times and then reassemble all that stuff, or I can actually go in and edit the one that created that direction. So if I want to bring this hole, I want to rotate this part around, that would be constrained by the plane alignment. So what I need to do is, first I'm going to close these up so I can kind of see a little better here. And here's my bearing. And you can see here I have all of my mates that pertain to the bearing. These are for the screws. And then this one, okay, so this one here is for the screw. That's for the screw. That is for the collar. There we go. That's the one that aligns it. So what I'm going to do is click on that, right click, and hit edit. And all I'm going to do is just change the solution. And you can see it flipped it around. Okay. And there we go. So now my hole's on the correct side. So that's all you have to do to edit one of these. Next, what I want to do is, let's say I want to edit a drawing and I want to change this. Now, I believe that they have you changing it to a 1/4 inch from 3/8, and I'm pretty sure that I already have this at a 1/4 inch, but I'm going to show you how to edit it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the bearing, and I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to hit edit. And that's actually going to bring up this drawing, and I'm going to be able to edit anything in here. So if I go to this hole extrude, and I take a look at this, and I want to make this 0.375, and hit check, and finish sketch, it will actually do that. And then I can hit return, and you can see there it updated the whole assembly, and it also updated my part file. So all of these files are interconnected. So it updated everything. Now I'm going to change that back because it actually is supposed to be a 1/4 inch, I believe. So I'm going to go in and right click, and we're going to edit that again. .25, finish sketch, okay. And then I'm going to return, and it's going to change everything back. And there we go. All right, so the next thing that I want to show you is I want to show you that you can actually create parts. You can build an assembly all in here. So what we can do is we can place from Content Center. We can also create. So I'm going to create, and I'm going to name this part rec block. And we're saving it in the right directory. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so now I actually have a new part, and I'm going to create this part based off of some sort of a plane here. So if I go into my base plate, you can see there, now I have basically a part that I'm basing it off of. And if I go to my origins for my base plate, right there is my center plane, and that's the one I'm going to use. So I could also, the cool thing about this is I could also go to Let me escape from that. Could start a sketch, and it's giving me these, but I could also go to my base plane, and I could go to my origin for this one, and I can actually create a sketch on there. So I can use any plane for any of these parts, and what it will actually do, it'll create a separate work plane. It'll create a special work plane that is offset from its base planes that it created. Now, for this part, it's the same because I have them aligned, and I based it off of this base plate's origin anyway, but just know that you can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and view it. And we're just going to create a rectangle here. We're going to make it 3 by 1.5. And I'm just going to move that to the center. So we're going to make that right there, completely constrained. And we're going to extrude that 3.0. Hit OK. And you can see there it's kind of just hanging in there. I'm going to make this plane so it's not visible. And we're going to call that rec extrude. And I'm just creating a drawing. Or creating a part model within an assembly. So there we go. That's named. And I'm going to go ahead and hit return. And now I have a part. Now this floats around in the assembly, so I can move this out. And now I can go ahead and assemble this. So I can say constrain this. I want to constrain that to there. Apply it. And I want that to there. Apply it. Oh, there's a problem. So if you get that error, chances are you don't have the right solution picked. So I hit apply, and that should have lined it up. Yeah. All right, so we have this one here. Hit apply, and there we go. So now that is fixed in place. Now let's say that rectangular block needs a type of material. So I'm going to right click on that, and I can edit it. And I can actually come into my part, properties, physical, and we can make that, let's say that one is stainless steel. Apply, close, and return. And there we go. So that's the editing power that you have in here. Also, can see here I have an axis on, so I actually want to go in and turn that axis off too. So if I go into collar, visibility off, and there we go. So there's my finished part. Now let's see what we have for degrees of freedom here. I'm going to go to view, degrees of freedom. You can see I have nothing except for just that one at the top. And that's just this spinning, and I'm okay with that. All right, let's go ahead and create a drawing from this. So I'm going to pick my Thaddeus Stevens template, and I'm going to hit base, and you must save. Okay, yeah. So it helps if we save this first. So we're going to call this. What was the name of this thing again? Because I already forgot. Shaft support assembly. Okay. And I'll hit save. And yes to all. Okay. All right. So we have our assembly there. Now I want an isometric view so I can kind of pull and label each part. And I also want it to be a little bit bigger than that. So let's go 3/4, see how that looks. That is actually perfect. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to move this. Maybe over just a little bit so I can get my bill of materials up here. And then I'm going to annotate this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a parts list. And we're going to pick the correct assembly. Hit OK. And I'm going to place my parts list up there. Now you notice I have descriptions in here and stuff like that, stuff that I don't need. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click on this. And I'm going to right click on these columns up here. And I'm going to column chooser. I'm going to click the description. I'm going to remove that and hit OK. The other thing is if I apply that, you can see it shrinks it down. I could also add columns too. So there's a bunch of columns that include the author for each part. That way you know who to call if you have an issue out on the floor. We can actually put the material in here, I believe. Yeah, so I could add a material. Okay, apply. You can see there it's telling me what the material is for each one. There's all sorts of different things you can add here. So let's go ahead and actually we'll stick with that. See if I can fit that in if I move this down. Yeah, that looks good. All right. Actually, let me extend this a little bit. See if I can get it to shrink. There we go. I can move this down a little bit. Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and label these. So what we're going to do to make sure that we know what part is what is we're going to create our balloons. And I'm just going to click on whatever part. Double click. Actually, I don't like that. I'm going to click right there. Okay. So there's all our parts labeled. The only thing we don't have, we're missing some title stuff. So what we could do is go back to our assembly, right click, go to our eye properties. We obviously don't have a material because that varies from part to part. For the project, this would be revision number 0, summary. Oops. Sim 228. And I believe that's it. So let's hit apply, close. And we come back in and it fills that stuff in for us. So that's it. That is our finished assembly. So, if you have any questions, I believe I got everything there. If you have any questions or you're having trouble with anything, as always, you can see me during my office hours, or of course, you can see me during class.